Hi everyone, a very good afternoon to one and all and a warm welcome to Ready for Life Festival 2024. My name is Jacqueline Chow, I'll be moderating this session. Now, Ready for Life Festival features a wide variety of talks to help you take charge of your retirement. And for this afternoon's session, we're going to look at this topic, Get Started, Legacy Planning Simplified. So we're going to take a deep dive to really help you consider what do you need to do? What do you need to consider when you want to bequeath your hard-earned savings? When you want to think about medical preferences, perhaps at a moment where you can't make that decision as well. Today, we are absolutely delighted to have with us two speakers to give us greater insights and unpack for us what do we need to consider when it comes to legacy planning. Please join me to warmly welcome on stage Regina Tan, CEO of Immortalize. Welcome, Regina. As well as Castor Teoh, Assistant Director, Nominations and Accounts Closure, CPF Board. Welcome, Castor. So we will make this as interactive as possible. Yeah, the intention here is to have a dialogue for you to tap on the expertise of both Regina and Castor joining us here today. So what we'll do is this, okay? I'll first just get them introducing what they do, and then what we'll do is we'll pull up a QR code where then you can get a chance, scan the QR code, and that's where we'll love to take your questions, all right? Okay, so let's start with Regina. Regina, tell us a bit about Immortalize, your company. So I went on site and they do have a booth here today as well at Ready for Life Festival. It says, unlock the potential of elderhood, navigate the aging journey with ease and confidence. So what is it, that you do at Immortalize?
Hi everyone, I'm Regina, founder of Immortalize. So Immortalize is a private company. We are actually an elderhood marketplace and information provider. So when we say elderhood, actually we cover three key areas. Legacy, which is why we are here today. We also cover the elder care as well as the retirement experience part. So marketplace. So essentially we are similar to your Amazon, Shopee, Lazada, Taobao. We bring in together all the providers that service the elderhood sector and basically put it in one location. So it's easy for you to find the information that you need. But what we realize is that for this elderhood space, most people have no idea what are the filters. You can have a marketplace, you can have data, but you need to know how to filter. That's kind of where the information provision comes in, where we guide people through the journey of finding what they need.
Very good. So it's bringing all the information, and these days with the World Wide Web and all, tons of information out there, right? So if you key in something in Google, you might find lots of different information, and you're thinking, where do I go to curate it? So it sounds like what you do is a first layer of curation, and then after that to guide people to the specific information that they require.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Regina, for that. And how about you, Castor? I mean, CPF board, all of us, very familiar with, but tell us specifically, what is your role? What do you do? Thanks.
So hi, everyone. I've been doing outreach on retirement schemes since 2016, and currently I'm very focused on the CPF nomination scheme. And I think today you're here to find out quite a few things about legacy planning. There can be a lot of things to cover, excited to share with you, but I promise you when you walk out of here today, you will have 3 clear steps I'm going to share with you on what you need to do next. And it's very easy.
Love it. I'm someone who always loves a good takeaway pointers. 3 clear steps that we'll take away here today. In fact, what we're going to do now is this. You can see we have QR code on the screen down there. If I can please invite you to whip up your phones, scan the QR code, and that's where we'll be taking your questions live. Yeah, we're going to go through and hopefully take as many questions as we possibly can during this live session. So if you have any difficulty, submitting your questions, do let us know as well, and we'll find ways to help you to still ask your question. Legacy planning, today's topic, is often perceived as complex, maybe even slightly daunting. And sometimes, when we talk about it, right, with friends, it's always like, not now lah, later lah, I'm not so old, why must I think about legacy planning? Yeah, and maybe there's some myths and misconception that we are able to address here today as well, to demystify, as we say, this process. But maybe let me have a sense. How many of you, just raise your hands, okay, you think that you're too young for legacy planning at this point? Anybody here? No lah, everybody's still very young at heart. Okay, second one. Legacy planning is only for the wealthy. Okay, third question, I am confused. Third option about legacy planning. If that's who you are, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yep. Majority. Anyone here who says I'm very familiar about legacy planning? Whoa, one brave soul down there.
If I can't answer any question, I'll
Yeah,
ask
we'll
them
look for you
help.
right now. Any question? We say, sir?
What do you think?
Yes, exactly. Okay, then let's move on to Kester's slide. It feels like most of us down here are confused with legacy planning, which is why you're here. Kester, why don't we kick things off with your slide? Give us an overview of what actually legacy planning is.
Yeah, so I've been doing outreach for a few years, right, and speaking to a lot of people about planning for retirement. But planning for end of life, which is legacy planning, is a taller order because it's like further ahead, right? And when we think of legacy planning, a lot of people might think like, hey, like in those movies, I have to leave big houses, a lot of money to my next of kin. Then I need to do legacy planning. There are those who come to me and say that I don't have a lot. I don't need to do legacy planning. Actually, that's a myth. Because legacy planning, right, we should come from a perspective that you're helping to reduce the burden of your loved ones with certainty. What do I mean by that? So rather than just thinking about the financial protection side of things, we look at 4 main tools when we do legacy planning. If you see the first row there is the lasting power of attorney, as well as advanced care planning. It is to help your loved ones have certainty that in case you lose mental incapacity or when you can't advocate for yourself, right? How are they going to care for you? How are they going to take care of your property and monies? So it's not just about bequeathing monies to your next of kin. And this point is actually covered in the next row, which is under will and CPF nominations. That's the part where you decide how you want to distribute your assets according to your wishes. So when we look at these 4 tools together, we like to package it as saying it's a gift of certainty to your loved ones, so that they know how to take care of you when you can't, and when they're gone, there is financial protection for them, especially if you're a breadwinner in the family.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I think it gives a clear picture then, what we need to do in terms of preparation and also then to help us in terms of decision. So you're going to take us a bit more around CPF, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, because I'm from CPF nomination.
I hope so. Then I was thinking like, this is your topic.
Yes, so I just wanted to show you the key differences between having a CPF nomination and when you don't have one. If you look at the happy family at the top, it's when you have a CPF nomination. And when you have a CPF nomination, what it means is you make a nomination to decide who and how much to give your CPF savings to each of your nominee. And then if you don't have one, what happens is your money, CPF monies, will be transferred to the public trustee who will manage and decide who is eligible to come forward to claim your savings. By this method, right, where you don't have a CPF nomination, it means that you don't get to decide who receives your savings, But you might be thinking, public trustee, right, they will look at who are my eligible family members. But they will look at your next of kin family unit. Spouse, no children, or like if you have parents. So sometimes even your parents can get a share of your CPF savings when actually maybe you want to leave everything for your spouse. You should make the decision for yourself on how you want to distribute your savings. And I've noted down there, you can see that with CPF nomination, it's actually very fast. My team works really hard daily to look at all these cases that come in, to review and process nominations so that your loved ones can get savings quickly and conveniently. Within 10 working days, we'll get in touch. Compared to if you leave the money to public trustee, it can take them up to 6 months to process the monies. Imagine post-demise expenses like funeral expenses, hospital bills. When they need money, where can they find help, right? So that's why it's important to have a CPF nomination so that your next of kin can receive the money quickly and conveniently.
Thank you, Kester. So a couple of things, I think, to pick up on that, right? First, of course, with and without time is that big factor.
Yes.
Secondly, I think the bigger decision, which is what I think legacy planning is about, is that having to make the decision that you want, how
Yes.
you want it to be distributed. I've had the unfortunate, experience of my mom having to be a trustee for her brother or sisters as well, right? And it can be really complicated. In fact, sometimes it can result in a lot of family tensions because so and so said this was meant for me, so and so says this was meant for me, and then it can get very complicated as well.
Yes, family dispute is really uncalled for, and you should really exercise the power of choice in your hands to decide who you want to take care of, when you pass on with your CPF savings.
Power of choice is incredible. I love that phrase that you just used. Take us through, maybe illustrate, with some numbers here.
Sure.
Because you mentioned about public trustee,
Yes.
right? Not only does it take time, there is, as I see down there,
Mandatory.
fees, exactly, mandatory fees. So
Yeah.
what are we talking about? What fees are we looking at?
Yeah, so it takes administrative time for the public trustee to identify your eligible family members to receive the money and calculate how much they are eligible to do. So there is a mandatory statutory fee that will be charged upon your CPF savings if you do not have a CPF nomination. And what kind of figures we're looking at, right? So we've all paid taxes before, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So taxes, they are calculated based on tiers. Likewise, it is the same for public trustee. The first $1,000 is 2.4%. The next $9,000 is 1.5%. So, and it goes on and on and on and on. Let's say you have $200,000 left in your savings, right, when you pass on. You could expect to pay close to $1,600 in order for your next of kin to claim the monies. That's a lot of money. $1,600, you can do a lot of things with that and save. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so even if I bring the figure down, $100,000, if you leave $100,000, the figure you could be looking at is close to $1,000 also. So that's a lot of money that you can save if you make a CPF nomination, and it's free of charge if you make a CPF nomination.
Okay, we'll get to that because I'm sure all of you are doing your calculations right now and thinking, well, makes, no-brainer, right? Let's make sure that we have our CPF nomination sorted. And in fact, later on, we'll take you through the steps around it.
You don't have to record down the first tier, second tier, because after this, you're all going to be making CPF nomination, and then you're not going to have to worry about the public trustee fees at all.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the CPF side, Castor, that you want to cover
We're
before?
good, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Regina, right? On that first slide that we had, there were also about lasting power of attorney, advanced care planning, and will. So Regina, if you could take us through maybe some of the other aspects of legacy planning we need to focus on.
Yeah, sure. So for us, whenever we start people or clients or users with legacy planning, we have a core set of tools. So CPF nomination definitely is a no-brainer. And then the other three items is your will, your advanced care plan, and as well as your lasting power attorney. So let's take a look at what they are and what's the difference between them. I think for most people, everyone knows what a will is. Anyone doesn't? Okay.
It's okay, no? Don't be shy. If you don't know what the will is, right, this is the moment to ask, okay? It is an open dialogue. All good? All good? Yeah. If not, you can send the question. Is the mentee working? Can they send the question? Okay, so you can send your question, okay? If you have any question from Castor and Regina at this point, you can pop it if you're shy to raise your hand. Go for it.
Yeah. So we usually start with will because most people know what it is. It's literally a legal document that tells people when you pass away, if I can be crude about it, if you die, what happens to what you leave behind. That includes your assets, includes your children, includes your pets. So I think that's something that people don't know about. You can actually, figure out what to do with your pets using your will as well. So that's one thing. So anyone unclear? Okay, then we move into lasting power attorney. So lasting power attorney is a legal document that tells people that if you lose mental capacity, it could be dementia, it could be accident, it could be permanent, it could be temporary, who gets to decide for you? So one of the common questions people ask, if I've done my will, do I still need to do my LPA? Yes, because the trigger factor is different. For will, it's death. For lasting power of attorney, it's loss of mental capacity.
Okay, so let's be very clear on that. I think that's very important because you're right. Many people I hear say that, why do I need an LPA? I've got a will in place, but the point is that trigger point is very different. Okay.
Yeah. So for lasting power attorney, there's actually two kinds of form, LPA Form 1, Form 2. The one that you hear the government championing a lot is actually LPA Form 1. So we'll go into details later on, but just general for now. So now, LPA it's a document that tells people who gets to decide for you. But how should they be deciding for you? You don't actually spell it out in LPA Form 1. You can use LPA Form 2, but we'll go into that later. So that's kind of where advanced care plan comes in. So when it comes to your healthcare, medical preferences, you can actually document it using advanced care plan. So the key difference between LPA, lasting power attorney, and ACP, advanced care plan, is that your LPA is a legally binding document, whereas your ACP is just a guideline. It's not a legally binding document, but it's a guideline that tells people, hey, if I lose mental capacity, these are my healthcare medical treatment preferences.
Okay, great. So like we mentioned, we will deep dive into each and every one of them shortly. But I think one of the key processes with so many of us being confused, right? I'm sure now you're hearing, right? When I first met them, during our meeting, and they were telling me LPA, ACP, I was like, wait, slow down, slow down, slow down. These acronyms very familiar to you, but for someone who perhaps is not so familiar, this could be hard. Yeah, fair enough. So, Regina, take us through. I mean, the key thing here is how can we simplify this process? I know one of the things that, these days with digital transformation, with digital tools, as well as what Immortalize does, is that we can streamline this process a lot more. So take, us base one, right? Most of us are confused here. If you simplify the process, what is a streamlined way for us to think about legacy planning?
Okay. So let's not talk about legacy planning first. Let's talk about cooking. Okay. Anyone here doesn't cook or haven't cooked before?
Kester first one.
Okay. Let's say, suppose you want to bake chocolate cookies. You wouldn't go and figure out how to bake chocolate cookies from scratch. You'll go online, find a template or what we call recipe to actually bake chocolate cookies, right? Then once you have the recipe, then you adjust the sugar level to see what your preferences are. That's exactly the same for legacy planning. You shouldn't be starting from scratch, trying to figure out what exactly do I need to do. So if you don't mind, what we have launched today, actually it's a digital concierge. So for us wise, we realized that everyone faces the same problem. So what we launched today, it's called
Immortalize launching.
Yeah, sorry, Immortalize launching. So can I have the little video? Thank you. So essentially what we did is we basically streamlined this cookie process through a digital concierge. So when you come and try this digital concierge later on at our booth, what happens is it's going to ask you some basic questions. For example, are you a Singaporean? Are you a PR living in Singapore? And so on and so forth. So with some personal information, we can identify what are the key tools that's relevant to you. So for example, if you're a PR in Singapore, you might need to consider overseas equivalent of an LPA. Just to give you an example here. So each demographic group has the list of things that they need to do. So once you have this template, basically you can move into the adjusting the sugar for cookie part, meaning the personalization part. So for example, through this digital concierge, we will, say for example, you have kids, 2 kids, okay? You can, instead of trying to figure out how to distribute to your 2 kids, we will tell you, hey, usually people with 2 kids, okay, there's a couple of ways of distributing. One is everything give to the 2 kids when they reach 21. The other one is to stagger it through time before you distribute. So we'll give you some templates based on people in your demographic group, how they usually decide, and then you can decide whether you want to go with the crowd or deviate from it. And in this way, you actually do not need to start from scratch. We kind of like guide you through the process. Sorry.
Very important, right? And I love this analogy. So I think that's key for all of us if you're confused to seek out these templates first to give you a sense of how do you structure it. And I think it's very important. Back to your cookie analogy, baking a cookie, right? Because there was once I was making cookies for the kids as well, right? And I'm not much of a baker, yeah? So instead of, spoonful and cup, for people who bake, it's clearly different. I added a cup for salt as opposed to spoonful. I can see the lady in front laughing.
Wow,
you can
shake.
You can imagine how when my kids bit into it, they were like, ugh, what is this? But I guess that's the point down here, that if you try and figure out your own, and sometimes even with the recipe in front of you, you can still make, certain mistakes as well. And the outcome, that you have is very different. So with this digital concierge with Immortalize, that will be helpful. But also with our public agencies as well, Kester, we do have some digital tools that can support our audience here.
Yes, so everybody ready your cameras as well, not just for Yepa. Congrats on the launch, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, ready. Oh, okay, yeah, this one. Okay, take picture first, I explain later. All these are very useful links that you can self-help your planning. It doesn't mean that you are independent in all of this. You can get help in completing all these tools. So earlier, Regina brought out very salient points about what each tool does. So I thought I'll recap it as well for those who are still confused. Okay, so CPF nomination, very clear, right? And then now we have LPA, lasting power of attorney. So, Jacqueline, do you know why in LPA they call the person making the LPA the donor, and then the person receiving the nomination as a donee?
I don't know that. Do you all know?
Okay,
Like
anybody
why
knows?
anybody
Sir.
knows? Sir, the
Do
one
you
that knows
know?
everything about legacy planning. Why is it called a donor?
Donor.
Someone who giving
Okay.
and donating something.
Close enough. So when I first started learning all of this, I was confused as well. Like, what is donor? Donate blood? Donate money? But no, actually, I learned from a trainer, right? So this gogov.sg/OPGO stands for Office of the Public Guardian Online. So they are an arm with the Ministry of Social and Family Development. They developed this online tool. So I learned from her that a donor is someone who donates his or her legal rights over the property affairs and welfare affairs matters to someone who is a donee. So that's why it's not donate blood, donate money. It's about donating your legal rights so that they can act in your best interest. So they've developed this online tool here, which you can log into SingPass to self-help and draft your LPA. This service is free, but you still have to find a certificate issuer to certify and go through with you that this is your intention to nominate this person as your donee, and you understand what an LPA does, is that if you lose mental incapacity, this person will step in to help oversee and make decisions on your properties and welfare affairs.
Can I check on this point now? And I could be a bit of a noob, right? Let's just say I want to nominate my husband, right?
Okay.
Does he have to agree that he wants to be someone to
For sure.
exercise my LPA? Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
So you are passing a huge responsibility. You know, you can't act for yourself. So you have to have a conversation with your next of kin. It could be your loved ones. It could even be within your social circles if you feel that your own loved ones may not be able to bear the responsibility to do so. Which brings us to the next point on advanced care plan, which is the middle column here. You can see advanced care planning. So advanced care planning, while it is not a legal document, right, it at least lists down the things of your healthcare preferences, how you want to be cared for if you lose mental incapacity, or if you are unable to express your wishes on how you would like to be treated. So in this advanced care planning booklet, it's available in 4 languages, so you can even have conversations with your parents, for example, who may not be very inclined with English language, right? Okay, but better with their mother tongue. So for this advanced care planning, there are questions in there that will ask them or yourself, if let's say you have a permanent condition that requires treatment, do you want to go for something comfort-oriented, or do you want to go for something more aggressive? You know, it also helps you to consider, like, if I want to nominate someone to be my healthcare spokesperson, what are the things I need to consider? For example, is this person able to speak up for me, able to advocate for what I want? Do they somewhat have the courage to speak up, you know? Even though this is not a legally binding document. It's like, if we're very good friends, I know this is what Regina would want. Rather than keeping yourself uncertain whether, you know, we should prefer something more comfort-oriented or aggressive in terms of treatment when you can't speak for yourself. So this is a very good booklet by the Agency for Integrated Care by the Ministry of Health, okay, that you can use and self-help online to kickstart on thinking considerations when it comes to planning for ACP.
Or even starting a conversation around it as well, right?
Yes.
Sometimes for ourselves, you know, or maybe for our older folks as well. You know,
Yes.
we can be very pangtang, we're sensitive to want to
Yeah.
talk about it, but at the same time, how can we just have a conversation around it? And the last resource that we have, My Legacy.
So for My Legacy, right, it's by the Public Service Division. It is a GovTech product. What it does is it is a one-stop portal where you can look out for legacy planning resources and more information on there when you want to know more about end-of-life plans, etc. Okay, I have one tip though. So a lot of considerations people might ask is LPA, you have a donee. ACP, you have a nominated healthcare spokesperson. Should they be the same person? How many of y'all think they should be the same person?
Okay, if you think they should be the same person, raise your hand. Okay, some brave soul. That raised like that very
Very
low.
good. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so majority thinks that they shouldn't
Okay.
be the same person.
Okay. It is not compulsory, but it is recommended. For example, I am your healthcare spokesperson, right? And then I say, okay, I think you need to go for this aggressive treatment. But then you need money for it, right? So you need to go speak to the donor to get their agreement that I think we should all go for this treatment, but it requires money. So I need you to do the money thing to
Right, and I can see if it's not, it could create again potential
conflict.
misalignment,
Yeah,
conflict.
exactly.
Yeah.
So again, it's back to the idea of someone or a few people who can advocate in your best interest when it comes to managing your monies, your property, your welfare, or even your healthcare preferences, who can speak up for you. So it is a good practice or a recommended practice that they be the same persons. Yeah,
No,
but
that's a
not
good tip.
compulsory.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good tip. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just going to pause out there. We're going to see if there's any question that we have at this point. Yeah. If there's anyone, don't hesitate. You feel free to just scan the QR code and ask Regina as well as Castor any question at this point. Just going to pause, take a quick look over here. Okay, we've got one question down here. Castor, you talked about CPF nomination earlier. What happens if I nominate someone who's below 18 years old, minor? Yeah,
Okay.
Firstly, can I do that? And secondly, what do I need to consider?
Yep. So definitely you can nominate a minor, anyone actually, whether foreigner, Singaporean, etc. But in the case of, let's say, you nominate a minor, someone who is below 18, at the point of your passing, this person still is a minor. What happens is the monies that is nominated to him or her will be transferred to the public trustee to be held in trust until he is 18 years of age. Then he can claim the monies. It is also subjected to the public trustee charges. Yeah.
I hope that answers the question. Okay, let's take a look. Any other question at this point? Next question here, Regina, you mentioned about will, right? So the question here is, do we need to engage a lawyer to write a will, or can we write a will ourselves as long as witnesses are involved?
Okay, so before I answer this question, let's take a look at who can write your will for you. Okay, so in general, there's three categories: your online will, your will writers, so they are trained in writing wills, but they are not lawyers, as well as your lawyers. Okay, so whenever we talk to people, if you need help deciding things, we always recommend people to try online will first. I'm not saying that you should use an online will, but most online wills are actually free to try. And by going through the decisions, for example, they will ask you, who do you want to be your executor? Who are your beneficiaries? How would you like to distribute? It basically helps you think about what you didn't know you need to think about. If you find yourself asking a lot of questions, hey, I don't know what this thing is for. What is the best way? I'm looking to achieve this thing. I'm looking to distribute my assets. Make sure that it doesn't affect my kids' HDB holding, for example. You find yourself asking a lot of questions, then it's probably a signal to you that, hey, you shouldn't be using online will. You should be looking for either a will writer or lawyer. So in general, the key difference between lawyer and will writer, it's basically a lawyer can give you legal advice, while a will writer can help you write. Technically speaking, they cannot give you legal advice. So generally speaking, for people who are older in age, we will just recommend people to go, if you can afford $300, $400, $500 around there, okay, go to a lawyer, because your situation is a lot more stable compared to a younger generation. Maybe they're going to have more kids, acquire more properties, and so on and so forth. If you're older generation, we would generally recommend you to go to a lawyer, because then you get a peace of mind.
Okay, yeah, so that clarifies. How about the point, can we write our will ourselves as long as there are witnesses involved?
Okay, so technically, as long as you fulfill the criteria of a valid will, for example, you have mental capacity, you are not under undue influence, and your witnesses know that, and your witnesses are not beneficiaries, technically speaking, as long as you fulfill the criteria of a valid will, you can write yourself. But the issue with it is, why would you want to write yourself when you can use a free online will online? I mean, that's kind of like, if you're going to write yourself, you might as well use a free online will. But the issue with it is that you need to know the consequences of your decision. So for example, if you write your will, say, I want to give my HDB flat to my two kids. okay, but you don't include something called a provision of sale clause. So technically speaking, your kids will have to go to the court to get a provision of sale before they can actually, sell the HDB or sell the house or things like that. So all these little nitty-gritty details, if you don't know them, then you wouldn't include it, and it will cause trouble for your future generations or whoever you are leaving the assets to.
Okay, so I think it's the nitty-gritty details that we're looking at, and I think that's why legacy planning can get, complex as well, which is why I want to simplify it a bit more. Okay, we're going to try and pull up a poll question right now, just to get a sense. What age do you think is appropriate to start legacy planning? If we pull up the Menti right now, we're going to give it a try. The poll question: what age do you think, there we go, is appropriate to start legacy planning? Yeah, we've got options: under 30, 30 to 40, 41 to 40, or over 50. Wow, majority are saying under 30. Let's take a look. Gonna give you another 5 more seconds to pop in. What age do you think is appropriate to start legacy planning? Okay. Surprised, Regina, Kester, are you all surprised at this? That once that they feel that it's appropriate to start planning is actually under 30. Kester, any thoughts first?
I think the crowd here is very woke. Very good.
That's why they're here today, Ma.
Really, we often talk about when you get your first job, you do financial planning, saving, budgeting, insurance. Legacy planning really is also financial planning.
Yeah, so I think it's great that you're saying that, right? Because I think it's also us educating ourselves differently. Clearly our youth zone is doing a great job. We're thinking about it differently. Regina, how about you? This is a surprise for you?
Definitely, especially in the under 30 categories, because people in the under 30s, usually they just ignore the whole legacy planning. But if I can just add on, okay, the truth is that for LPA, ACP, and CPF nomination, the moment you hit 21, you definitely should just do it, because the consequences of not doing is very high. So for example, okay, if you don't do your LPA, anyone here knows what happens?
If you don't do your LPA, do you know what happens? Don't know how.
Okay.
Tell us, please.
So LPA Form 1, on average, of course, different provider, different costs. The certificate issuer costs around $50 to $100. Okay, and basically activating your LPA is close to immediate as long as you get the mental incapacity certification. But if you don't have an LPA, your family, so the common misconception is that, oh, my family can decide for me. Yes, they can, but it's not automatic. They have to go to court to get something called deputyship before they can actually make decisions for you. So for example, your property that you're renting out, they have to go to court to get permission to continue renting out your to actually rent out your property. So that court process, okay, takes a few months at least and a few $1,000s, depending on how big of a power your family is asking, and as well as how complicated, is there any contest and things like that. So compared to LPA Form 1, which takes, say, 15 minutes or so to do, and around $100 versus deputyship. So even if you're only 21, you should do that so that your family doesn't have to go through court to make decisions for you. And the truth is that anyone could die or lose mental capacity at any point in time.
Yeah. I always say that the assumption of the runway is that long. Sometimes it's not truly there as well. Yeah, you don't want to be caught in a situation where you don't have that power of choice. Let's pick up on one of this question, and I think it leads nicely to the next segment we're going to touch about. The question here is this, and it's for you, Regina. If I have limited resources, what is the bare minimum that I need to do to build up a retirement or legacy?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, where we start with clients, it always starts with the basic, which is CPF nomination. It's a no-brainer. Just do it, and it's really, really, really fast.
Thank
your
you.
LPA, yes, your LPA, at the very least, Form 1, okay, and then your ACP. So that will be the basic. But as you go through YEPA, so like I was saying, the digital concierge that we just launched, what happens is that when you go through these documents, you start asking yourself a lot more questions. You start identify what's important to you, who's important to you, and things like that. And then you will start realizing, okay, maybe you need more. But then at that point in time, it's a matter of, would you like to do more? So for example, if I go back to the kits where you distribute everything, some people, so in YEPA, there's an option, right? I just want to distribute everything make it simple, just distribute everything, that's it. So if that's all you're looking for, technically you don't need other things. But if you're looking at, okay, I don't want to give my children a huge inheritance at the age of 21 because you're going to ruin their life, potentially. I want to wait till they're 25 or 30 years old when they're a lot more mature financially to give them. Then you may need to consider how are you going to distribute that money? Who's going to hold that money? Is it some sort of trust? Or is it some people who's holding that money?
So your digital concierge then would take us through some of these steps to help us consider these staggering, for example.
So it's literally the same as me helping someone, my client, but if you want to hire me, it's expensive. That's why we use digital concierge, so that a lot more. So for us, our concierge service is only it's expensive. So it's only exclusive to the richer crowd. That's why we created a digital concierge, so that more people
for the masses.
Correct. It's free for you to use anyway. So more people can have access to this guided journey.
All right. CPF nomination, right? I want to take you through a bit more. Kester, if you could take us through, how do we get our nomination done with CPF and what are some of the key considerations then to note?
Yes, so we have improved our website tremendously. There's actually an online nomination service that you can use to quickly make an online nomination as long as you know who you want to nominate. All you need is you log in with your SingPass. Okay, you can scan this QR code to have a
We can do it
preview.
now? Yeah, we can
Yes,
do it.
you can if you already know, okay? Or you can have a think about it, or you can have a conversation with me later on these nomination considerations. It's fine as well. So for nominees, right, you have to have their NRIC, their full name, as well as their contact number. Okay, then you can allocate how much you want to give to each nominee. You can nominate up to 15 nominees through this online nomination service. But if you want to nominate more than 15, you have to go to our CPF Service Center.
Is it often that people nominate more than... It
No.
sounds like a lot of people.
So I think when you guys do financial planning, right, you have to come from a perspective of all of your assets and finances. I know you want to take care of a lot of people. Even if you have 15 of them, you have to think about whether when your monies are distributed to these 15, is it meaningful enough? And when you look at all your savings, you should also look at your house, the money in your bank account to do more holistic financial planning in order to decide how much to give to who and should this person receive nominated monies or not, that kind of consideration. So more big picture consideration. Okay, so after you've gotten your nominees, right, you need at least 2 witnesses. These witnesses has to be at least 21 years old with a valid SingPass. They cannot be any of your nominees to prevent conflict of interest. So even the 3 of us here can be your witnesses. But what is important is that you need to be the one personally telling, like let's say I'm nominating her to be my witness. I need to tell her, Regina, can you be my witness? I want to make a CPF nomination. You have to be the one directly communicating to her that you are the one making the nomination, and she acknowledges it using her own SingPass subsequently. And then within 4 working days, generally, your nomination will be reflected online on the CPF website.
Okay, very quick, efficient process now.
Yes.
Okay, next, what else is there around that we need to pay attention to when it comes to our CPF nomination?
So you should review your CPF nomination regularly, right? Let me see, is that my next slide? Yes. So what does your... Thank you, the slides for the prompt. Take picture, take picture. Okay, while you take picture, actually I want to get tissue. I saw myself in the monitor, I'm like, all the oil on my face.
Healthy lah, the glow.
When I get
it's called the Oppa glow.
Yeah, when I get excited, I perspire and then I'm like very hot,
Well,
Okay.
as you're dabbing as well, right? Maybe I can get Regina to answer one question first, and we'll come back to this CPF in just a bit. You mentioned quite a fair bit about LPA, Regina. One of the questions that came in is it like set in stone? Can I change? Can I make changes to my LPA? Because what I think now, maybe I'm 45, what I'm thinking now at 45 could be vastly different to what I'm thinking now when I'm at 60. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I'm going to go over and beyond and talk about this point to cover will and ACP as well. Okay. So I think one of the misconceptions that people have is that when you do your will, lasting power of attorney, or ACP, it's forever. Okay. It's not. In fact, so most of our clients, for example, they'll be like, oh, but if this happens in 5 years' time, I want to do this. If this happens in 10 years' time, I want to do this. Okay. If you do this sort of planning, where you're planning one legacy plan for your entire life, it's going to be a very expensive legacy plan. And in fact, it's not really advisable because your preferences and your needs and your wants, it's going to change through time.
Okay.
So the tip that we usually give clients, whether you're doing your LPA or for your will, is that number one, you can always change that as long as you still have mental capacity. So if you don't have mental capacity, you can no longer change them.
Okay.
That's number one.
So that's a key criteria
Correct.
here. Yes.
Okay. And number two is that, for example, when you are planning for your will, don't try to plan 10, 20 years ahead. It's not going to happen. Do maybe 5 years. I think generally speaking, we will say 5 years. What would you do? What do you want if you die or lose mental capacity now? Okay, don't think about, oh, when my kids turn 21, there's a different scenario. No need, it's okay. You can always update it later on. Let's talk about now first. You foresee in the next 5 years, okay, what is the arrangement that you want to do? So that's kind of one way to actually optimize the cost of your will, for example. Because if you do a 30-year plan, it's going to be extremely expensive.
Because you got to plan for the different scenarios
Exactly.
around it. So now with the short term of a 5-year range, and then you can update both your will and LPA as you go along.
You should review all your documents, including CPF nomination,
Okay.
every few years or every time you have some significant changes in life. For example, a new kid or, changes in life or changes in preferences.
The thing is, must set reminders lah. I think that's the problem with humans. It's all there, but we don't set the reminders as well. Okay, back to you, Kester. So let's talk about the CPF nomination. What's covered, what's not covered? And I've got a couple of questions around CPF after this as well.
Sure.
Go.
So you might be thinking, what are the CPF nominated monies you're giving to your loved ones? On the left-hand side, you can see what is covered is all of your CPF savings across all your accounts, ordinary, special, MediSave, and retirement account. And if you're on CPF Live, there's unused premium that is covered as well as discounted Singtel shares if you have them. So what is not covered, right, is properties bought using your CPF savings. That one, you have to make a will or an LPA, and then pay out from a dependents protection scheme. You have to make an insurance nomination with Great Eastern, and as well as investments under the CPF investment scheme, make a will or LPA to cover that. One common question we get is, what about the CPF monies I used to pay for the house? There's no need to refund. No need to refund the CPF monies that you used to pay for your house using CPF savings.
Okay. That's one question here, which is, can I give my money to my cat in my will? Regina, and then to Kester, can members nominate CPF to the cat? Why not dog? I mean pets lah, pets. Okay, let's generalize pets. Yes. So,
Okay, I have to-
yes, one by one, yes.
Okay, the truth is, the pet, it's not a legal entity. So you can technically give to your pet, but you need to either assign it to someone or set up some sort of vehicle like a trust, mass market trust, whether it's a mass market trust or is it like a proper living expensive trust, doesn't matter.
It's been done, right? Karl Lagerfeld left it to his cat, if I'm not wrong, the fashion.
Actually, among the younger generation, more and more people are asking about it. In fact, we are starting to onboard more lawyers who basically specialize in this area because
I
it's
see.
a whole different
Landscape,
consideration.
yeah.
It is the same for CPF nomination. You have to make your own private arrangement either with a guardian or a trust company. But we are not in a position to enforce how the legal guardian or the trust company manages the money. It is your personal arrangement with them.
Okay. So on this line about CPF still, right, if Kester could take us through, are there any schemes of best practices that we need to consider around CPF? Then after which, Regina will take a bit about misconceptions or mistakes people make when it comes to legacy planning. Kester first.
So another slide for you to take a picture. This one. So one of the best practices, right, when it comes to CPF nomination is to review it regularly. Same thing as what Regina said about the rest of the documents. There are various milestones and life stages you go through. Your family units change. Your family relationships change. The people you nominate may no longer be around. So these are some of the considerations you have to think about when you make a nomination. So one example, did you know that once you get married, your nomination is going to be revoked? So you have to make a new one. In contrast, if you divorce, unfortunately, sorry about the marriage, the nomination does not get revoked automatically at the moment, okay? Or let's say when you have a new child in the family unit, you may want to include him in your nomination. Earlier, I mentioned that if you nominate a minor, the monies will still go to the public trustee, right? But there are ways, right, to nominate in such a way that, for example, you have to think about the spouse is going to be the main caretaker, so you can nominate most of the shares to the spouse while leaving some for the minor in case, So there are various permutations which we can discuss separately in person later if you wish to talk to me.
So there is flexibility around the percentage of how you want to do it.
For sure, as long as it adds up to 100% in your permutation. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I believe there's some cash shields, some cash shields scheme, yes.
So CPF, right, helps you with your housing, healthcare, and income needs. So we look at these categories. In the case of total permanent disability, what do you guys understand about total permanent disability? Some looking at you.
Total permanent disability. I think unable to move, usually,
Okay,
I think.
okay,
Maybe of the limbs or some physical aspect.
So in insurance terms, right, I think generally people will think like, for example, I can't see, lose both my eyes, lose 2 limbs, or lose 1 limb, 1 eye. But there's another part, right? It's either this set, or if you cannot hold employment permanently. That is also TPD, total permanent disability. So when you think along the lines of mental incapacitation, you can't work. That is TPD itself. So there are schemes in place to help, CPF schemes in place to help people in the area of housing, healthcare, and retirement income. So for example, if the person who kena the TPD, they are still paying for their mortgage, there is the home protection scheme, which reduces the mortgage based on the number of shares he is covered for. Okay, so there's less burden when it comes to home protection scheme. His side of the mortgage will be covered. And when it comes to healthcare needs, right? So there is also CareShield Life, which gives the member payouts for life as long as he can't do 3 out of 6 daily living activities. We're talking about toileting, feeding, etc. Okay? And then finally, there is the Dependence Protection Scheme. It is actually a form of basic financial protection for your loved ones in case you kena death, contract terminal illness, or TPD. So you can expect to get a payout about 55 to 70K depending on the age, but that is a form of basic financial protection for your loved ones.
Okay, so there are many of these government initiatives, they're in place already, so do utilize them as well. I think it's idea here to support us to think about, what are some of the things when you want to consider when you want to leave to your next generation.
Yes, and on the CPF website, if you haven't logged in for the longest time, we have a lot of new improvements on there. If you're wondering whether you're on all these plans, right, you can just log in online very quickly to check on our CPF website whether you're covered under these schemes.
We do have a CPF booth, of course, here as well. So at any point, if you need support on how to log in and check, perhaps you have not logged in, like you said, for a long time, they can find you in the booth or your fellow.
I'll hang around here.
You hang around here later. But there's one question here. How does the nominee gets the CPF balance amount? Bank account or queue to collect from CPF branch?
Oh, okay. So if you have a valid CPF nomination, right, the process to claim the savings and receive the savings is very seamless right now. It could be your PayNow linked NRIC bank account.
Okay.
Yeah, very straightforward.
Very straightforward. We're making it simple. I think that's the key, right?
Yes.
Streamlining the process as best we can. Regina, so when it comes to legacy planning, you've obviously helped a lot of individuals as well. Tell us, what are some of the common mistakes or common misconception to warn this crowd against?
Okay, I think bringing back to Caster's point on mental incapacity, the truth is that I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on planning for death, okay? But the truth is that between death and you losing mental capacity, for yourself, okay, so when you die, for example, if you're a sole breadwinner, right? How to take care of your kids, all these problems comes up. But when you lose mental capacity, the exact same set of problems comes up, okay? But not only that, now you yourself becomes a burden to the family. So most people are not prepared for that situation. Death, so what I see across clients, for example, they spend a lot of time doing their will, LPA and things like that. But when it comes to, for example, things like ACP, it's literally just touch and go. But the truth is that, have you thought about if you lose mental capacity, because mental capacity could be permanent, it could be decades. Say a person with dementia. And these days, people are getting dementia earlier and earlier on. So what's going to happen? Not just from a legal standpoint or the things, who's going to care for you and things like that, but also the financial standpoint. That's why when Kester talked about CareShield Life, I think CareShield Life and CPF Life is one of the best gifts that the government has given us, because we help clients with overseas assets. And when we start looking at the overseas system, for example, if you have assets in other countries, you need an equivalent of overseas LPA. Some countries don't even have that. Ours is as simple as just going online, do some things, and that's it. So our neighboring country, I have a client which I'm helping them with their overseas LPA right now. Basically, you have to create the same document, but get high court approval. That's number one. And whether the institutions recognize this high court approval is a different story. Whereas in Singapore, it's so easy, people recognize it and things like that, that I think sometimes we take it for granted. So I think that's one first point, is that the overemphasis, death, of course you need to plan for it, but you also need to give the same emphasis to mental incapacity, because you are going to become part of the problem as well for your family. And if I can just look at my notes.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. Right. So, you know, one of the other common mistakes that people have is that they decide their instructions based on how much it costs. So for example, if you are looking for a lawyer, you need to know that there's $99 will, there's $5,000 will, and everything in between. There must be a difference between your $99 and a $5,000 will. So my suggestion is, don't start going looking for the cheapest thing. And then, because usually, for example, $99 will means everything give to one person. That's it. No clause, nothing. No substitution, no extra executor, things like that. Right? First, figure out what you want. Okay? Then optimize the cost. For example, by the time you figure out, okay, this is what I want. Okay? If this thing, particular thing here is costing you a lot of money, then you can make a decision. Okay, this thing is costing me way too much. Can I drop it? So by eliminating all these little things that you realize that it's not important to you, you can optimize your costs. So that's kind of where I'm propagating, which is that first, figure out what you want, then optimize for cost, rather than the other way. Basically, you try to optimize for cost first, and then fit in what you want.
Yeah, it's almost like setting yourself in a box, then you get stuck in it as well. Anything else to add,
Yeah,
Kester?
like making a CPF nomination is free. By the way, you guys, so make one.
Yeah. So make sure you do that as well. We've got about 6 minutes or so left for our session today. Just wondering if there's any last remaining questions from our audience member. If you have any question, this is your opportunity to ask. Of course, the two of them are also available for some time after this session. And there is a CPF booth as well as an Immortalize booth. Isn't that as well?
So while we wait for question,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I'll just add in one more thing
Yes,
on
please.
the cost part. Actually, sorry, I just got mind block.
No worries about the cost part you wanted to mention.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Don't
I'm
worry,
so
we'll
sorry.
come
I
back.
really just got a mental
We'll
block.
come back to you on that. Let me just pick up one question that we have down here. CPF nomination, free. You already said it. Everybody realizes must do.
Oh,
but
yes,
can
yes,
I
yes.
nominate someone who is from overseas, a foreigner, or does it have to be a Singaporean?
You can nominate anyone. So if it's a foreigner, you need to have their name as well as their particulars like their identity number, their passport number. What is most important is really their contact details and mailing address, so that we can get to them as quickly as we can and know where they are at. I have a slide actually on reviewing CPF nomination.
Okay, let's do that,
Can
and then we
flash that
can
as
pick up
well?
on the
Yeah.
cost later as well.
Yeah. So, okay, you don't have to do this now, but actually online, if you scan this QR code, you will be able to see your current nomination. For those who haven't logged in for a long time, right, you may be met with a few situations. Like, for example, I don't have a CPF nomination, so make one. Your nominees, maybe one or some of them have passed on, so it's time to make a new nomination. And then if you're unsure if your nominee details are updated, so earlier I mentioned about foreigners, right? Sometimes their addresses change, their identity numbers change or get updated. So you should update them so that we can establish their identity quickly to pass on the monies to them very conveniently. Yeah.
Okay, so do it now. Yeah, I can see many of you scanning. And of course, like I mentioned, today is here to support you. If you run into any roadblocks, do not hesitate to reach out to the team from CPF. Regina?
Yeah.
On the point of cost?
Yes, correct. I remember now. Okay, anyone here doesn't have insurance?
No,
Okay.
don't have insurance.
Yeah. So think about how much you pay for insurance every year. Doing your legacy plan, getting that you buy insurance for a peace of mind. You may not claim it, right? So when you do your legacy plan, it's essentially buying an insurance for a peace of mind, getting some sort of assurance for a peace of mind that if anything happens to you, not just both you and your loved ones are going to be taken care of. And I say you because of the mental incapacity section. Like I said, it's heavily overlooked. Many people have life insurances, but do you have anything related to mental incapacity or preparing you for mental incapacity? That's kind of where I'll leave it to you as a thinking point.
Okay, so I think that's one of the key things I think that legacy planning considers, right? Beyond death as well, for us when in the case of mental incapacity. And I think that's where, over the past few years, we're seeing that's that weird middle, ground where there's a bit of a question mark. And that's where we want you to then start thinking about how you can have the power of choice as well. We've got about 3 minutes, so we're going to take us home. But if I can invite both of you, one key take-home message. Yeah, Kester, you did say at the beginning today. I know. I was coming to you already. That there will be 3 things that we will learn. Yeah, and then Regina, one key take-home message as well. Okay, 3 learning points. Go, Kester.
Okay, can we go back to the slides again? Sorry. So earlier I say about 3 things, right, to help you kickstart your financial planning in terms of legacy planning. And one of the first things you can kickstart is really CPF nomination. It is the easiest. It is free. There's a online dashboard you can use to help facilitate your CPF nomination and making it. So you have 1 down, there's 3 to go. So the 3 to go, how leh, right? So number 2, the key takeaway is, right, before you jump in all of this, right, I feel that you guys need to review your relationships with your next of kin, with your social circle, to see and identify who truly matters, who can advocate for you, who can you trust to act in your best interest when the time comes for it. And who knows, maybe in the process you reconnect some relationships, or it renew your perspective towards your relationship with someone else. And the third one is, I feel, in order to live life, right, you should prioritize yourself. My colleagues here have curated this festival, many things to do, and for you to discover what it means to live a good life. And I hope after this, you also continue to look at all the things that we have to offer today to find out the kind of life that you want to enjoy because you deserve it.
Fulfilling life. Regina?
Okay, I have a cheat
sheet. I give you 3 3 or so That's unfair.
I do have a cheat sheet here. Okay, so first thing, don't start from scratch because you're going to find yourself overwhelmed, and what's going to happen is that you're going to procrastinate and not do it in the end. So whether you use Immortalize Digital Concierge or find some other ways, start from a template, okay, just like you would for cooking. Second point, so get your schedule assets done. Okay, so you just need to schedule assets, basically a list of what are the things that you have. Okay, it takes you probably 5-10 minutes just writing down what do you, for example, bank accounts in Singapore, which bank account in Malaysia, which bank, what's your account number. That's all you need to do, because without it, imagine, do you know what your kids or your parents, I don't know what the age group depending, so what your kins have. Okay, you're going to, what happens in real life is that people actually send messages to every single bank to figure out if this person has a bank. That's kind of where the lawyers make a lot of money, basically doing this thing for you.
It's a lot of hunting around for information.
So, and there's a lot of, the banks can't really review the information and so on and so on. So it just takes 5-10 minutes. Just write it out. Whether you use a professional, digital vault, or you just write it out on a paper and put it in a safe, or you use Excel, that's up to you, but have something. And the last one is always you don't have to tell everybody about your legacy plan, but you need to tell people who are going to be executing and managing your legacy plan. So for example, for your will, you definitely need to tell your executor where your will is. Or for example, your LPA, where are your ACP and things like that. So whether you have done, you just need to communicate so that people know what you have. I think that was one of the questions actually. Someone came to the booth and asked me, but I don't want to tell anyone. Is it possible? I said, you can, but then who's going to execute or administer things? Who knows that they are the one responsible for doing things for you?
They could be very surprised by it as well. And I think, you also need to arm whoever that's executing for you to know what are some of your wishes as well.
Just one last point to add on to her. So in terms of communicating your plans, earlier I shared the slide where there is my legacy. So my legacy portal, you also can upload your plans in the LPA ACP. Okay. So that when you pass on, the donee or the person you authorize can actually access and know the documents that you have.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join me to thank Castor as well as Regina? Very insightful. Like I mentioned, they do have booths down here, but they will be hanging around after our session for a couple more minutes. So if there are any other questions, do not hesitate to reach out to them, okay? We've got lots of different activities happening in our Ready for Life Festival. So if there are other talks that you sign up for, please head on over. We will be back later on at 2 p.m., right? For the magic of fatherhood, to take a look at how can we balance, your passion, and everything about your career and finance as well. Thank you once again for joining us. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for your participation. We'll see you at our next session. Thank you, Castor. Thank you, Regina.